All right, we're going to get started now. Thanks again if you're joining in. And cool. So my name is Oren Levine. I'm with the International Center for Journalists in Washington, D.C., and we're here to talk about TruthBuzz, which is our global challenge, which is looking to try to stimulate new ways to help verified facts and truthful stories reach the widest audience possible, and what I describe as, looking for ways to make fact-checking fun. And we have a fine panel here to talk about the contest and what we're looking for, and share some ideas and thoughts about what might make for a really good entry. So we've got Aimee Rinehart here from First Draft News. She's the partner network manager at First Draft, which is an organization dedicated to improving skills and standards in reporting and sharing of information that emerges online. She's been working in digital technology and digital news for a long time, and just telling us about her early efforts back in the mid-90s as one of the pioneers of the New York Times website. So it's a very rich pedigree in the web world. And the other gentleman on the panel here is Shaheryar Popalzai. I think you're in Karachi, aren't you? Based in Pakistan. And he's an ICFJ Knight Fellow, digital news strategist with a strong background in media innovation and innovation generally. And he's been a pioneer in the use of 360-degree video and other media innovation in Pakistan, and is actively now working with a number of media outlets there, both in helping them improve their digital and video game, and also working on broader digital strategy issues, including streaming and Facebook Live. Okay, they told me I have to turn my volume up. I will do that. Let me go adjust my mic to make sure everything's cool here. Audio options. Let me up my mic level here. There we go. That should be better. All right. So what I wanted to do is start off by talking a bit about the basics of the contest here. I'm going to share my screen and just show you our site. If you're really interested in TruthBuzz in general, we've got a page at Medium. So go to medium.com/TruthBuzz to learn about the contest, learn how to apply, and learn a bit more about what we're doing in the contest. I didn't show the first draft site. We'll get to that. And what I wanted to do is go through a bit about the basics of the contest and then ask some questions to the panelists and try to flesh out some information about the sort of things we're looking for and some guidance about how you might prepare your own application for TruthBuzz. As I said, what we're looking for, if I go to the main article that describes it, we're looking for ways of what do you say, refuting or clarifying a false or misleading report or statement in an engaging, entertaining way that convinces audiences of its veracity and encourages them to share it. And what that means in simpler language is, like I said, we're trying to make fact-checking fun. We're trying to look for innovative ways of taking a fact-checking story or refutation or some sort of statement of factual information or factual news and delivering that in a creative way that tells a story using all of the techniques of the internet and social media, whether it's cartoons or graphics or videos or audio or whatever you can come up with, looking for interesting ways to sort of pack the information into a compact space, but also providing enough background and context so that the readers know that it's truthful and reliable information. So one of the questions I wanted to ask our panelists is, if I'm an applicant, let's say I'm putting my entry together, how can I make the case that my entry is going to be actually shareable or might have a potential to go viral? I mean, we know that there are sort of general shorthands in the industry, like, shorter entries are better than longer ones. Visual storytelling has more impact than maybe text. But what other sort of guidance would you give people in terms of how they could make the case that their entry is definitely something that would be attractive and shareable? Aimee?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is we want to be surprised. We want rich information, but conveyed in a way that surprises us. And that doesn't mean it's always a tricky thing to balance that surprise element with sticking to the facts and to the truth. But it really has to be that kind of a blend. And I think the things that travel best online really use that old argument structure of logos, ethos, and pathos. In this case, the logic, the truth that would be behind it, and the ethos. And in this case, it's how are you telling the story? Is how you're telling it authoritative? And by that we mean, are you professionally developing it? Can we see the mic in the frame, for example, or can we see sloppy code? Those are things that would, I think, would prevent someone from winning the contest. And then you have the pathos. Are you tapping into our emotions? Are you going to get me with that little kitty photo, or are you going to do an expose on a highly polarizing political figure? Both of those things trade wildly online, and it's up to the person who does the entry to balance it between the kitties and the politicians, I suppose.
That's excellent. Shaheryar, any comments on that or addition? You're muted, though.
Oh, I'm muted. I'm sorry. No, sorry. I think for me, I can agree. For me, above platform and presentation would be the content, because that's what's really king at the end of the day. PolitiFact does a really good job of simplifying fact checking and presenting it to the reader. So I think I'm looking more at content and then the way you would present it. Oren mentioned making it visual, making it easy to understand. I think exploring new platforms is something that needs to be explored a lot more than just the usual suspects like Twitter and Facebook. There's Snapchat, there's WhatsApp. WhatsApp is huge in developing countries right now. And I feel anybody who's able to tap into that using even basic text or an image to fact check something or verify something would, I think, reach out to a wider audience. And I think it's kind of something that I would be looking for in an entry at least.
Mm-hmm. Actually, Aimee, maybe this is a good time to do this. I understand that First Draft has a toolkit that might help applicants prepare some of the information and give them some skills that might be useful for them.
Yes.
Is that something you could share?
Yes. I'm sharing my screen now, and this we've assembled a group of articles and resources. These are good for anybody who's either adept at this kind of verification work or is new to this verification work. We just recently, last week, launched in collaboration with Public Data Lab a guide to a field guide to fake news. What that does is actually gives you a recipe for coming up with data visualization. So what I'm showing you right here is chapter 1, recipe 1, and it takes you through the process that this team assembled in order to come up with a data visualization. Let's see if they have it. So this is an example of the data visualization that they came up with. I don't know if we're necessarily looking only for pure data visualization, but this is one way to tell a story that's complicated and can convey a lot of facts. Then we also have, which is not affiliated with us, but these are tools that sometimes we use at First Draft. We used Timeline recently to create a timeline of fake news or news related to fake news. There was so much information coming out at the end of 2016 that we thought, how do we explain to people what are the most important things to keep your eye on? And so this was what's great about these, and what's great about is our field guide is that these are all powered by Excel spreadsheets. So you don't need to have a lot of experience or even any data visualization background to make these things work. If you can figure out a spreadsheet, you can figure out how to, or at least experiment with how to tell your story.
That's great. That's really useful. And in fact, that brings up another related question, because you were talking about the verification side. We shared this information about our contest with Alexios Manzarelis at Poynter Institute, and he's running their fact-checking initiative. And he had a really interesting comment, which is that one of the challenges of this contest is going to be to maintain that balance between virality and sort of excitement and accuracy. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts about how applicants can navigate that. Because of course, if you end up with 15 footnotes on your GIF, it's going to be kind of hard to see the image. But on the other hand, if there's no context at all, it's going to be hard for a viewer to know that they can trust your information. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts about how people can walk that tightrope, as it were, and what sort of things you'd be looking for to sort of balance the fun part with the fact part.
I think the biggest thing is to stay focused. Don't try and bring down an entire regime or an entire topic. Rather, explore one component of a story fully. I think that's the best thing. And to really, for this contest, the underlying story will win. So, and by best story, we mean true, verifiable, and engaging. So it has to have that really important blend. And again, that element of surprise. There have been so many good examples of data visualization and videos and even illustrations to explain weighty topics recently, like Syria. For example, there was a great video on that that we can share with people later if they're interested. But it's that element of surprise and authority. Makes sense.
Shaheryar, any comments on that?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Aimee. I think content is going to be at least 60-70% for me when it comes to the entries, and then we're going to get to the presentation format of things. And there's a whole bunch of things people can explore. There's really cool, easy to use websites that let you create animations now, like Powtoons. If you're looking for that, and if you don't have the kind of resources you would want for a project like this, there's options that you can use to create audible GIFs or even create like mini audio files with the text over them and share them on Twitter and Facebook. Again, providing people more information than you would normally be able to. That would, I think, help you create a nice balance of virality and accuracy, like you mentioned. But I think it's going to be the content is going to define that at the end of the day. I mean, sometimes even content presented in the dullest format can go viral. It's really dependent on the kind of content you're pushing out.
Yeah, I'm curious about to sort of dig into that more. What do you mean? What sort of attracted? What would be attractive about the content that would make something that might be considered dull go viral? That's interesting.
I mean, just the fact that it's the content itself. I mean, in Pakistan, we don't have a lot of data visualization teams. For digital, we've got those for print and television. But the way the Panama leaks was covered here, it was like it went viral massively overnight. Again, there was the content that drove it. Like I mentioned, content is king at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how you present it, but I think it's important for us and people to use different formats to reach out to different audiences. It might appeal to an older audience to just deal with television, but a younger audience might want the news on Snapchat for that matter. So I think that's what we're,
Right. Aimee, anything to add to that?
No, I was just, one thing that leapt to mind was podcasts. I mean, who would have thought, well, and email, who would have thought that those trends that hit in the early thousands, late 90s, early 2000s would be back again. And so again, it's that element of surprise. People, you don't know how they want their information. People consume it so differently, but probably something that would be adjustable for mobile or responsive to mobile would be useful, because that's where people get their information from.
Absolutely. And I say that not just because I spent 10 years in the mobile industry, but absolutely. I would think that anybody entering this should be thinking of mobile first, if not foremost.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned the element of surprise. One of the things I saw just a couple of days ago from ProPublica is they basically were sort of pioneering the idea of fact-checking as tweet storm. And they were responding to some critiques of ProPublica with basically a series of tweets which told a cogent story over the length of like 9 or 10 tweets with claims, like you said. I think they reached, was it logos, pathos, and
ethos?
And ethos
yeah.
In the course of 10 times 140 characters. So that's another thing.
It's an incredibly powerful way to reach people, and that's how the current U.S. president is reaching so many people.
Right.
Using this medium. After that, there was a story that went around about there's an app that helps you create tweet storms. So before you endeavor to your project, think, there's probably an app for it, or there's a shortcut for it, and you can probably contact ICFJ to ask about those tools and resources. But we've illustrated or mentioned some here for people to use.
That's a great idea. And in fact, what we're going to try to do, if you go back to our Medium page, we'll try to follow up with some additional links and tips and links to some tools like Powtoons. Is that the one Shaheryar mentioned? Yeah, we'll try to collect some more information and put it up on the Medium site for future reference. That's a great idea. So I've sort of asked a couple of general, more practical questions that we've been hearing from other potential applicants, and then I'll open it up to questions from the folks on the line. One question is, we've been asked of whether you can create an entry in any language. And the answer is absolutely yes. I mean, our application form is in English, but we're looking for applications from all over the world in any language. Feel free to do any language or no language if you're maybe communicating facts in sort of pictures and emotions and emojis. That's also okay. We've been asked whether an individual can create multiple entries. Yes, in fact, that's also okay. We just would ask that every entry fill out a different form, separate entry form for each entry, but that's perfectly okay. And also, if you have a project you've already worked on, that's something that you may have done 6 months or a year ago that you think would be a great entry to this contest, that's also acceptable. Just use the regular entry process for that. So now I want to see if there's any questions from any folks who've joined the webinar. Yeah, I think you can use the chat for that. Get Cassie for that. Oh, I see one coming in the Q&A. So Joe's asking whether an NGO can apply, and the answer is absolutely. I think entries can come from an individual or an organization. That's perfectly okay. Let's see, any other questions? Oh, I had another question I wanted to bring up. We've been asked that because we're looking for stories from all over the world, we've been asked of whether the stories that are submitted, if it makes a difference if these are stories that have global impact or if it's possible to win or get far with a story that has local impact. And from our perspective, I think like our panelists have said, it's really all about the story. If you've got a strong local story that meets all the criteria and is something that definitely would have an impact locally, it's absolutely acceptable, and we'd love to see those kinds of responses to local issues. Another question is, can you tell us something about who the group of judges would be? Well, you're looking at 3 of them here, and we're also assembling a panel of judges, again, from around the world, from different parts of the journalism and communications community, and I expect we'll be we'll probably be publicizing those names later on. We're still finalizing that panel. See, I don't have any other questions coming in. Any other sort of parting comments from either Aimee or Shaheryar, or any other sort of pointers or comments?
I would just encourage people to, no matter what your budget, preferably no budget, to really get in there and dig around with facts and have fun and explore. Because if you're not surprised, we won't be surprised. We really like to be challenged when judging these, and to really talk about the merits of the story and how you chose to convey that. So good luck to everybody.
Right, Shaheryar?
Yes, same. Good luck to everybody. And I think probably the best advice I can give anyone is understand your readers in your region, and then build around that. I mentioned WhatsApp earlier. There's SMS that works really well in Africa, for example. There's different tools, different platforms that work well in different regions. So understand that first. That's where your virality is going to come from for your story, and maybe build around that for your TruthBuzz pitch.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And what I want to do to close with is go back and show people to where they can go for more information and how to apply. If you go back to our Medium page, and I think we're going to try to make this more visible, we have a main article here which has a link to our application form. And if you follow that link, that'll take you to a form input. And this is where you'll be making your actual application. It's worth noting too, we're open to applications until June 30th, so there's still plenty of time to come up with some ideas. And if you notice here, if you have any questions at all about the application or about the contest as well, you can certainly leave us a comment over at Medium, or you can email Cassie or Johanna, the 2 of them are managing this program, and those emails are up here on the screen. And I think they're also in the Medium article, so you should be able to find those there as well. Let me see, let me look down to the article. I think they're down there. You can certainly reach us up through comments on Medium as well. So lots of ways of finding us out. And again, the application form is relatively simple. As we said, the application's in English. We'll ask for some basic information about you and mostly information about your project. We're looking for, again, digital projects. So this is something that's been posted or has a URL or might be a standalone media file. Both of those are acceptable. We want to know more about the context for your entry, what claim you're addressing. We want to know something about the sources you use for your fact checking, sort of how you determined that the veracity or the truthfulness of what you're submitting, and then tell us a bit more about what you think is innovative or original about the approach, and even we'd like to see more about how you would promote your entry to help it help other people share it in whatever channels you think are most appropriate. So give us a sample social media post in whatever format you see fit that you think would help promote your entry. So it's a pretty straightforward entry process. And we're looking for, again, your experimentation. And I really appreciate Aimee's comment about the importance of surprise, that we're absolutely looking to be surprised. So if there are no other questions, I do see one more. Where do I apply? I hope we answered the question about applications. So again, go to medium.com/truthbuzz. Follow the link in the article, and we're going to try to I may put another article up on Medium with a direct link to that application to make sure it's even clearer. But you can find the entry there in that following that link, and we'll make sure to make that even more visible. All right. If there are no other questions, I think we can close out the webinar. Thanks again for participating, and we look forward to seeing your entries.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.